kaysa national level. So yung mga nagmamagaling dyan na huwag na mag-ambition na opposition, doon lang sila sa LGU. Well, of course I agree. In principle, I always said it. Dapat grassroots, papataas. Diba? You have to get mayors. Kaya siguro, nakikita ko yung wisdom ng Lenny Robredo potentially running for I don't know, congresswoman, mayor, or governor dun sa kanilang bailiwick. She has a pretty decent chance, and also she'll be in a position to do an Exhibit A. And we saw that Exhibit A culture work for the Gong in the case of Davao in terms of politics. Of course, ano to, mahabang usapan kung talagang yung Exhibit A na yan ay magandang exhibit. Vico Soto, of course, even Isko Moreno at some point, all of them use LGU position for national projection and even presidential national projections. No, both Isko, for instance, and Digong, although Digong was the successful one. Now, I see that. But there are many LGU positions which are extremely, extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. And then there's also the other aspect of this, which is, as I said, if there's going to be a push, which most likely will happen, push for constitutional change, the real opposition has to have a seat at the table. So far, the only real opposition person, I mean, the minority in the Senate is actually 2. Doon naman sa Kongreso, ilan lang bang opposition dyan? 12, 10, 15? Like, di ba? Yung totoong opposition, hindi yung nagpapa-opposition lang. Arguably, it's just Rizal Antiveros in the Senate. And mukhang sa Congress, it's just so lopsided. Good luck, di ba? I mean, sabi nga ni, naka 300 plus na sila. Ngayon pa lang. Baka more pa nga after 2025. So the Congress is practically a hopeless case in terms of getting enough minorities there. But in the Senate, dahil maliit ang Senado, pero powerful ang Senado, you may just need 3, 4, or 5 people from the real opposition and with conviction politics to make sure na things don't go off the rails. And as I said, since sa Senado, it's a name recall issue, there are many people from the opposition who actually have sufficient name recall, like Bam Aquino, like Lenny, like Kiko Pangilinan, to a certain degree, even Marojas and Franklin Drilon, who may have a decent chance. Not to mention Chel Jokno. Of course, many of us are hoping that he'll still make another run for this. Who knows? Baka third time lock rin, parang Pia Wurtzbach or si Riza, di ba? So there are like 6 of them I can think about at the top of my head. Trillanes also potentially may run. Although parang alam natin, LGU atang pinuposition niya, mayor ba? Sa Caloocan. Anyway, so 6, 7, mga ganun, or half a dozen name recall opposition leaders. Even if 1/3 of them win, meaning 2 or 3 of them win, together with his Ontiveros, and then who knows, maybe 2 or 3 independents in the next Senate, they may make enough noise, or they may make enough opposition to make it very difficult for the other side to railroad the constitutional change, right? So for me, it's both indispensable. At the same time, it's not totally undoable. And let's not also underestimate how difficult LGU is, and sometimes LGU is much more difficult than Senate race, especially if you have already people with name recall. Now, having said all of that, all of those things, ang tanong naman ngayon is, I mean, in general, what's the way forward for the opposition, right? In general, what is the way forward for the opposition? Now, for me, pagdating sa opposition, I mean, you already have 3 straight losses. 2016, Lenny was the barely, diba, parang outlier there, although, Marcos Jr. keeps on insisting that siya dapat talaga nanalo in 2016. And then 2019, for the first time in 81 years, walang taga-opposition nanalo sa Senado, complete wipeout, decimation. And then last year, si Riza lang naka. So, we see that something is not working. And alam natin, pagdating sa opposition sa Pilipinas, in general, ang opposition sa Pilipinas ay liberal. Liberal in not necessarily the best way, right? Liberal in the sense of very conservative in terms of system conservative reforms. Yung mga hindi naman talagang transformative change ang gusto nila. Yung mga konti-konti here and there. Tapos medyo pa decente, medyo pa cute. And then medyo okay naman on some of the other policies, social cultural policies. And then, of course, in fairness naman, also against corruption, etc. Now, we can have a long argument about how much anti-corruption initiatives work under Pinoy or some of the liberal administrations. But generally, we know that they're better alternative to the usual trapos, illiberal, demagogues, authoritarian people. But nevertheless, hindi yun gumana eh. Hindi na yan, wala nang appeal yun. Wala nang appeal yun, diba? And if you look at it, for 2028, for instance, if there were to be a race today, ang maging top 2 candidates may Sara Duterte and Rafi Tulfo. So let's first start with the Rafi Tulfo case, because I think what Rafi Tulfo shows us is quite interesting, right? Because in the case of Rafi Tulfo, it looks like he's diversifying his base. So the siguro sa the usual base you can expect for him is the kind of the Duterte style of base, 'di ba? Yung gusto ng matapang, macho, palaban, get things done. But if kung kalaban mo si Sara Duterte, parang sa kanya na yun eh. Medyo mahirap yun, 'di ba? Splitting that constituency. So I think it electorally makes sense for him to broaden his base. And at the same time, to be fair, to give benefit of the doubt to the senator, I think he also has some legit good intentions. Sa education, for instance, you can say he's really genuine about some of the things he pushes for. And then increasingly also we see that in foreign policy, for instance, right now. No? Na yung kanyang positioning is actually, hindi ito out of nowhere. If you have been actually following Rafi Tulfo, Senator Tulfo, he has been making some very good interventions. Hindi lang dun sa mga laban sa mga land grabbers or yung mga, of course, yung mga abusada sa ating OFWs and mga others. These are big issues and I think he's genuinely concerned about these things. But if you look at it, for instance, he raised big issues about NGCP. Itong National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, a very problematic legacy of President Arroyo, essentially allowing a Chinese state-owned company to have 40% stake and arguably have 100% control engineering-wise over this thing, right? Actually, malapit dito sa amin yan. Or at least this is the allegation. And this actually was raised as early as 10 years ago, I think, by Senator Miriam Defensor, then Senator Riza Hontiveros, and now, of course, the most prominent voice for that is Rafi Tulfo, who has even suggested that the president should even consider nationalization of the NGCP on grounds of critical infrastructure. Nakita din natin na si Rafi Tulfo also took a tough stance on West Philippine Sea issue and openly called out actually the vice president for taking a position in the West Philippine Sea na hindi tugma dun sa position ng ating administrasyon, and I would say position ng taong bayan. Right? So, yung mga sinasabi ni, ano ulit, ano ulit yung speech ni Sarah na sobrang beshi sa China. Ganun. Okay. So, of course, kinall out din ni Rafi Tulfo yan na sabi na dapat sigurado yun ng vice president na kanyang position nga hindi ganun kalayo dun sa position ng presidente, or you're not sending mixed signals that may undermine our position. No? Ito yung September 21 Duterte greetings sa China. Alam niyo naman, daming memes and spoof about that, where she hoped for expanded areas of cooperation with the Philippines and China. Sabi ni Sara Duterte noon, we hope that our partnership will prosper in the areas of agriculture, trade, investment, science, and technology. Pero parang si Tulfo hindi natuwa masyado. No? Ang point niya is, you want to make sure that the statements you make, especially sa gitna ng hidwaan natin sa West Philippine Sea, are not sending the wrong signals or mixed signals. And then, most recently, of course, ito yung malaking importanteng issue. Ito yung modernization ng Philippine public utility vehicle systems. Again, let me say a thing or two about this. Sobrang agree ako dun sa ating mga kaibigan na sinasabi na dapat justing transition, meaning hindi kawawa yung ating mga ating mga drivers, no, jeepney drivers. We want to make sure that ano yung proposal nun na mag-Fortuner sila or something like that, or mag-new car sila na parang mas mahal pa sa Fortuner or something like that, mga 2 million or something like there's nothing wrong with transition, but it has to be done in just, reasonable at hindi bara-bara way, no? Kasi malaking sektor din ang pinag-usapan natin dito, at kung napakamahal, questionable, if not corrupt, yung process of transition, bugbog din tayo mga ordinaryong consumers, no? Now, speaking of that, some would say China po ang solution dyan, because actually last year, for the very first time, China became the biggest car exporter in the world. They overtook Japan. I mean, it's insane the level of success China has had in the past 5 years alone. Naalala ko yung first time na lumabas ang Chinese car, si Cherry ba yan? Parang pinagtatawanan yung pangalan pala. Ano ba man? Tapos, diba? And then, mamaya, Geely naman, diba? Cherry, Geely, yung mga ganyan. But now, pag tinignan mo yung mga itsura and design nila, they're really impressive. Now, I don't know about the quality yet. Some other people can say a lot about it. But I think China is going to be big pagdating sa electric cars. And BYD of China is now even ahead of Tesla. And, well, we can have our own arguments about how China got those technology and all of that. But I think you should also credit the Chinese government for very good industrial policy, supporting yung kanilang mga EV manufacturers. So there are at least NIO, BYD, Apat na alam ko na big time na Chinese EV producers, and their cars are beautiful. I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm more into European cars and all of that. So, I like nice fancy cars, but I will give it to the Chinese cars. They really look good. The color schemes are beautiful. The design is gorgeous, and the price is super good for what you get, at least in terms of what you first see. Kasi nga, hindi naman natin alam. We have to see over 5-10 years ano yung itsura ng mga kotse na yan. But from the first things we're seeing here, I think especially BYD cars are good quality rin. Diba? Si Warren Buffett, among others, are also investors there. So ako, I can see the appeal of the Chinese cars, especially electric Chinese cars. I really can see that. And China is also dominating EV battery industries, EV mining industries. So the future of cars is China. Uh, I have to admit it. I mean, again, as I said, I more want German cars. I find Japanese cars more reliable over time. But when it comes to EV cars, parang Tesla lang yata makakalaban sa mga Chinese companies eh. Oo, and let's see if the other big ones like BMW, Benz, Toyota can transition. Let's see. But grabe, ang lakas ng China, and they can do it at very, very competitive prices. I mean, I was surprised to see even in the Middle East, no? Mayayaman na bansa like Qatar, United Arab Emirates. Uh, Sobrang uso na ngayon ng mga Chinese cars. So, again, galit na galit ako sa ginagawa nilang pagbubuli sa West Philippine Sea, but that never blinded me to the many successes of China and the amazing work ethic and the amazing determination of the Chinese people to be a world power, including in high-tech technology, including in EV cars, no? So, nakikita ko bakit some are pushing for reliance on China, pero ang position ni Tulfo, Senator Tulfo, is actually more on probably on national security grounds, because siguro ang concern niya dito is dependency. Kasi once bumili ka na doon, lock-in ka na for life, kasi yung maintenance mo galing sa kanila, most likely yung other infrastructure mo galing sa kanya, most likely galing din yung kanilang charging station sa kanila. So you're locked in to into their technology. Ayan, si Ruben nagka-comment. Yeah, again, of course, personally, I'll choose a Tesla. Or actually, I'd rather go for Taycan or something like that, kung ma-afford natin. But what I'm saying is that the direction of the Chinese cars is really, really good in terms of price competitiveness. I have some Chinoy neighbors here who have BYD. Song yata yun. It looks gorgeous. It looks like a Lexus. And it's electric. And the price is pretty competitive. Because if I were to get an ordinary Tesla, and then there's this SUV, I don't know. I probably will be okay with BYD. Except, from a national security standpoint, I'm not sure I want to put my personal data. That's why yung TikTok natin dito, mahal na mahal ko kayo, pero burner phone yan. Diba? Because I don't want to put my personal data there. So, but I can see from a non-national security economic perspective, yung appeal ng China. Right? Although, personally, I'm okay with Tesla. Although, personally, I'm not okay with Elon Musk. Alright. Now, going back to this, ang position ni Rafi Tulfo is paano na para mas mapabilis ang pagre-revisa at agarang pagtanggal ng prangkisa ng NGC. Sorry, mali itong binasa ko. Ito yung sa China pala, sorry. Nasa prangkisa ko. Okay, China is already invading the West Philippine Sea. Will we allow them to take over even our roads? Wow, that's a good quote. That's actually a good quote. Again, as I said, I see the appeal of Chinese cars, especially EV cars. Pero if you take a national security standpoint, I think this quote from Tulfo is very, very good. I mean from a political standpoint in terms of messaging and communication. Tingnan mo, ang ganda nung sinabi niya. Again, ang messaging niya, you may of course you're free to disagree with me, pero itong sinabi niya, China is already invading West Philippine Sea. Gusto ba natin na bati yung mga kalsada natin masasakop nila? Di ba? Parang sasakupin nila, di ba? Parang yun yung sinabi na. Malakas yan. It's a very strong statement coming from Tulfo. And Tulfo is very good in coming up with these quick statements, right? Parang Tom Friedman style, di ba? In one sentence, he can say something that it will take probably three paragraphs for other people to say. So, boom. Gets kaagad. So, I think this is a very strong positioning. I mean, I'm sure many people will make huge money if they make contracts with big Chinese companies for the huge, massive public utility vehicle redesign and essentially reconstruction that we'll need in the next 5 to 10 years as we transition more to electric vehicles, etc. But yun yung dilemma ngayon. So I'm wondering, siguro will Japan, siguro Toyota will be the alternative. I mean, Tesla is very expensive. I don't know if we can Tesla everything, but I think Japan, probably Toyota, or Korean cars like Hyundai. Ioniq is wonderful. I'd rather get Ioniq than Tesla. Let's see. So what is the alternative here? Those are the things we have to talk about. But I'm glad that the Senator Tulfo actually at least raised this issue. Now let's go to the last part. Let's talk about France Castro, because this is an interesting case. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that she'll be the next, necessary president or even Senate will be hard, but my point is, considering where she started, when she had even, less name recall than, other known leftist candidates who like Nery Colmenares, uh, you know, uh, Casino, so on and so forth, Maza, so on and so forth. She has come very far. She has really, really come very far, and I think this is really impressive. So, while I'm impressed with Rafi in terms of diversifying his messaging and then positioning himself like as a contra Duterte on the West Philippine Sea China issue, that's quite interesting because of course alam natin ng panindigong, di ba? Medyo kaibigan sila. But now, etong positioning na yan. Now, we can have a long debate about intentions and all of that, but I give a bit of doubt. But for me, it's also the effect that matters. If someone as popular as Tulfo, who is one of the top candidates to become the next president, assuming there will be a 2028 elections, that's the thing we said in the previous part, right? Na baka hindi na mangyari 2028 presidential elections, baka ipa-parliamentary na nila, engineer nila yung transition. But as of now, Tulfo is at least the second most preferred person to become the next president of the Republic of the Philippines, right? So yung kanyang repositioning is very interesting, very astute, and I think it puts him in a position to get the BBM vote, split some Duterte vote, and also get some vote from the other side, right? Because of his good position in the China West Philippine Sea issue, among others. So let's see. But now going back to France Castro, I think from where she started, she has come a very, very long way. In fairness, and it's very, very impressive. And I think there are many factors to that. One is that there was a little bit of element of luck. Of course, naalala niyo na interview natin si Congresswoman France Castro. And pinag-usapan natin yung kanyang background, yung kanyang educational background in particular. And as you remember, she actually took mathematics, parang education siya, but specialization is mathematics. So teaching mathematics, yun talagang kanyang expertise, right? And unlike some people, she didn't rely on her dad's money, mom's money, whether clean or not so clean. She had to work her way through, right? She had to get scholarships, etc. She had to work through. So she's a true self-educated person and at the same time a world-class educator. So that automatically placed her in a very good position, very, very good position to go head-to-head with Sara Duterte, which, well, I don't know how good of a lawyer she is, so maybe Ruben can tell us. But last time I checked, neither the vice president nor a lot of people in her team are really adept at kind of people, right? Meaning really specialization in education reform. Especially considering gaano kamalala yung problema natin sa education system, especially given yung legacy ng Duterte administration. So sobrang they bungled it big time yung education system natin nung panahon ng pandemic. So we were already behind the curve. I have some graphs that can show you na Philippines is so bad. I mean, even by third world standards, we're so bad. And nakita naman natin sa World Bank functional literacy, parang more than 90% ng mga pupils natin from 7th grade onwards. I mean, may problema talaga sila seriously when it comes to functional literacy. So these are serious problems. So I think that's the first thing. That's the first lucky thing in a sense, because she was the right person to go toe to toe with Sara Duterte precisely because of not only her advocacy dun sa kanyang party list, which is really about teachers and education, but also about her because of her own personal, diba? Her own personal expertise as an educator, as an education graduate. So to be honest, I rather listen to her than, whatever, some random lawyer that put there in charge of DepEd, right? Ibang usapan pa kung magaling na lawyer hindi. Right? So that, I think, made her authentic but also authoritative. That was very, very important. Ito yung isang strength ni Castro. In a way, she was the right person for the not so right moment, if you would put it that way. But the other one is also matapang siya. I mean, kitang-kita natin yung kanyang back and forth, not only with Sara but also with the father, right? And she openly said, in fact, one reason na suspend yung program ni Digong is because he was accused of making incendiary comments against people like Franz Castro. Not to mention, of course, that Franz Castro has been also very critical of the Duterte administration red tagging, and also she has been going toe to not only with the daughter but also with the father and sabay-sabay. No, and then you also had that court case, right? Which Franz Castro has pushed against the ex-president, right? Again, unprecedented. But that could be just the beginning of more legal cases, including ICC against the former president. Maybe you can talk to Attorney Ruben Carranza more about this in the future once it's available. But so that's the thing. But the third and most important thing for me, not necessarily most important, but very important thing for me is probably second most important thing at the very least is yung kanyang political acumen. I mean, she deals very well with the current leadership of the Congress. That's a bit of realpolitik, but you need that if you're in such a minority and difficult position. Pangalawa, yung kanyang relasyon sa media. I think she has become more and more comfortable sa media. Nakita ko yan nung na-interview natin siya. And I'm seeing it more and more as she engages the media. That's very important. Communications is very, very important, especially when you're taking positions against very powerful people. And you're coming from a kind of a structural disadvantage. Being a progressive in the Philippines is never easy. Much harder in most countries, most other democracies. This is not Latin America. This is not Chile, Argentina, Brazil, where leftist progressives can become president and leaders. That's not the case yet. No, and if you look at some surveys like Asia Barometer, Philippines is a very center right wing country. We're more south of United States than South America, right, in terms of social value system, based on the evidence na meron tayo. Alam ko yan kasi pinag-aaralan ko bakit nanalo si Digong. Nagsulat tayo ng libro, so I had to go through different surveys, World Virus Survey, Pew Survey, Asia Barometer. So, for me, totally unsurprising na nananalo yung mga katulad ni Digong or pwede manalo yung katulad ni Tulfo. Although in fairness kay Senator Tulfo is positioned to... So, being a left is very difficult. But this brings me to the last point. Naalala niyo yung picture na shinare ni Teddy Bagilat, na shinare ko yan, na kung saan, andun lahat yung mga opposition leaders, andun din si Leila de Lima, which made, of course, this Christmas very special. Andun din si Lenny, and then andun sa gitnang-gitna, nakatayo si Franz Castro, right? So alam natin for a very long time, hindi ganun kaganda ng relasyon ng mga liberal centrists and leftist progressives, especially sa Pilipinas. Sobrang grabe yung hidwaan ng dalawa na yan. And not to mention yung mga hidwaan among leftists themselves, no? So I think that picture was not just a picture. I don't think it was just a party. I think there was much more to that, and I think it shows that with some adjustment, with some openness of heart, with some sincerity, and with some reflection and spiritual soul searching, it is possible to imagine that more and more people like Franz Castro could become not only leaders of progressive movement but also a mainstream political leader, which she is in that sense. So for me, she's the breakout star of 2023 in politics, Philippine politics. Not because she's the most important in Philippine politics, of course not. But I think considering from where she started, ang layo ng narating niya, right? Which tells you something about perhaps where the opposition should go. Now, my position is very clear. It's an evidence-based position. It's not just a position because kaibigan ko to or mga ganun. Riza Hontiveros still remains not only the leader of the opposition, but also the proof of concept of what could work for the opposition, right? Because if you look at Riza Hontiveros, she won last year in a very difficult race too, where no one else from the opposition won any national post. When it was a complete domination of Unity Move Marcos Duterte axis. And if you look at it, she had many strengths to her. And one of her strengths is, for instance, electoral strategy. So, yung isang sa mga strength ni Riza was, nag-rely siya sa vernacular advertisement, influencers, and endorsement dun sa Visayan region, dun sa mga iba't ibang region ng ating bansa kung saan hindi Filipino or Ingles ang primary language. That helped her a lot. She also has a very strong grassroots movement. And the other thing with Riza Hontiveros is that she's very good also in combining this kind of progressive positioning, but also being very smart about choosing her battles and building coalitions dun sa Senado. Alam ko yan because kilala ko rin yung ibang senador na hindi necessarily progressive pero they actually have pretty decent relationship with Riza Hontiveros. I think Rafi Tulfo should be one of them last time I checked. No, so I think she's still the model for the opposition, but she cannot do it alone. Others have to walk in her footsteps. And now we're seeing with Franz Castro, with Riza Hontiveros, with more and more of these people, not to mention, of course, also return of Leila de Lima, we may have more role models and North Stars, no, who may show us the way forward. Dapat may konting tapang, may konting conviction, but also may konting realpolitik and electoral acumen. Kailangan lahat ng mga yan. Now, garantiya ba ito na mananalo ng kahit isang dalawang pwesto ang opposition? Hindi. Okay? Huwag tayo magloko dito. But, it's a fight worth fighting, but more than that, it's a fight that has to be fought. Otherwise, good luck sa Pilipinas. Diba? Alam ko, dami sa inyo tuwan-tuwa kasi, or, well, except yung mga ka-DDS natin dyan, tuwan-tuwa kayo na na-marginalize yung isang, ayaw nyo, di ba? Marami kasi mga never Duterte dyan, right? Medyo timing ngayon ng mga never Marcos, eh. But, let's be absolutely clear about this. There's a very good chance after 2025, we may have a push towards a totally new constitutional order and pwede totally mabox out ang liberal progressive opposition for good. So, they have to fight the fight, and they have to fight it smarter and better. So, I don't think traditional liberalism works anymore. It's not what I think. It's the evidence. 3 elections proves that pretty clear. Pre-election survey for 2025 are also showing that. So something drastic has to be done here. New positioning, new personalities, or new packaging, or all of the above. All right? On that note, thank you very much. Maraming salamat sa ating mga ka-TikTokers. Ayan, diretso na sa Beijing yan. O, diba? Sabi ko naman magandang EV battery nyo. Huwag na kayo magalit sa akin. Alright. Thank you very much din sa ating mga YouTubers, mga kaibigan natin na sa atin. And thank you very much also sa mga kausap natin sa Facebook. Wow. Dala natin isang oras na ba tayo? Thank you sa mga nakinig sa atin. I like it. Actually, I like it. Very relaxed. Very diretso. But the reason I did this diretso lang because I was writing about it. I mean, that's the thing about being a writer. Because when you're a writer, you really have to organize your thoughts. You have to really distill things, and you have to have key arguments and a framework. So, I'm very, very thankful dahil dyan. And, pasensya na ako yan. Si Ivan nagagalit kasi sabi ko, dapat 9 p.m. ako nag-space. And then sabi ko, wag na, baka tulog na yung mga tao. But, ipopost naman natin yan sa Twitter. Pasensya na. Alright? I'll try to, and I have to prioritize platforms kasi. Tsaka medyo malakas na tayo sa Twitter. So, kailangan ko mag-build up dun sa iba. At hindi pa kasi monetize yung Twitter. No, I'm just kidding. Hindi rin naman monetize ang TikTok natin. Alright. On that note, thank you very much. God bless. And talk to you soon. Don't worry. I'll repost it. And hopefully in the future, we can also bring space. I'll use na lang my other phone. Hopefully, its own internet. On that note, thank you very much. God bless. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. And talk to you soon. God willing. Inshallah.